behind the camera. Like that, huh?
Yeah, I bet you seem like it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CSD regular board meeting. We will convene our regular meeting after having a closed session earlier.
You turned on.
No, now we have to push the button. How does that change the sound a lot out there? I think it's gonna pop through that microphone, that speaker on that microphone. Good, okay. A summary of actions taken during closed session is probably gonna be no reportable action.
It is, but I wanted to test my mic, so I will say there was no reportable action for closed session.
Okay, very good. Could we all honor our nation with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would one of my colleagues care to move to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Quinn, second by Jensen. Roll call vote, please. Crispy?
Director Jensen?
Aye.
Director Quinn?
Aye.
President Han?
Aye, motion carries 3-0. And I have two presentations. I'll begin. So every once in a while I see people just doing things just because. And I decided to do something kind of cool with it. Well, I think it's cool, maybe you won't. But when I'm in the valley in the morning, I see a woman walking along the road picking up trash. Almost every single time I'm in the valley in the morning. And she's not doing it as part of a club, she's not doing it for glory, she's not doing it to turn in the trash and get recycle refunds or anything, she's just doing it. And so I thought it was important to acknowledge that kind of behavior. So I stopped, I asked around, does anyone know her? Nobody seemed to know her name. So finally I was driving by and I said, stop, pull over. And we pulled over and I asked her, I said, look, my name's Greg and I noticed you're out here picking up trash all the time and I would like to give you some type of recognition for that. And she was very humble about it, and then I said, well, I'd like to issue a presidential award. And she would accept the award, but I don't think she's here. She said she declined an invite to come and receive it in front of a bunch of people. So what I wrote up was, on behalf of Bear Valley Springs, the president of the board wishes to acknowledge your service to our community. During your morning walks, you were spotted numerous times picking up trash. Your service deserves recognition and appreciation. Therefore, it is my honor to award Jean O'Connor for selfless service and doing good deeds even when no one may notice. This certificate from CSD Board President Gregory Hahn on the 13th day of October 2022. So then I find out that her husband does the same thing, but he goes in a different direction. So I have an identical certificate for them, and that was as far as I know, this is the very first presidential award from the CSD district. All of that was for them, not for me, of course. Okay. And we have a second presentation from the Bear Valley Springs Astronomy Club, and that will be given by Claude Plymouth. Apparently.
Oh, there we go. I have the green light. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for giving us this time. My name's Claude Playmate. I'm the current president of the Bear Valley Springs Astronomy Club. Back last year, after myself retiring and my wife, who both retired from careers in astronomy, we relocated to Bear Valley Springs. Once here, we were introduced to another amateur astronomer in the valley, John O'Brien, That eventually led to the formation of the Bear Valley Springs Astronomy Club. So with that, we now, a year later, have a membership of roughly 52 paid members. And one of the primary goals stated for the club is to be science outreach and public education. So with that in mind, we have embarked on a project to develop an observatory for Bear Valley Springs community. Now, this is the image that comes to mind when I say the word observatory. Please strike that immediately from your mind. What we are actually proposing is pretty much the antithesis of that. As a matter of fact, what one might call it more descriptively would be a telescope shed as opposed to an observatory. However, I'll continue to use the word observatory because, well, let's face it, it sounds much cooler. What we are talking about is a modest roll-off roof observatory. Essentially, it's a modified 10 by 12 foot garden shed, which means no build permit necessary. These are very simple, unobtrusive, self-contained with a very modest footprint. Now, believe it or not, a roll-off roof such as we show here have some advantages for small telescopes as opposed to even a traditional dome. For one thing, once the roof is pulled back, the entire sky is available to the telescope. You don't need to sync dome motion to the motion of the telescope. And also, as I say, when they are closed, they hide very well in plain sight. They look nothing like a traditional observatory. They don't invite any curiosity. They just look like a garden shed. Move forward. Come on. Move ahead. I meant that. Okay. Originally, we had pursued locating up at High Country Park, which is admittedly a high altitude and very dark location. However, over time, it became apparent to us that some of the logistics involved in the site, particularly road access, just became daunting. So we've rethought our proposal a bit, and now we are looking at the co-locating with the RC modelers out at the airfield. Here we have a we show the airfield. We zoom in a bit. You can see in here, there's easy access, road access, can drive right in. There's plenty of parking. There's already a porta potty, that little square thing off to the right side of the oval. And it is well separated from the most egregious light pollution in the valley. Not a lot of lights are right around there. One advantage to coming into this area is this is an area that is already maintained for the airfield. So by putting a shed here, we don't add any added burden to facilities maintenance out there. This is a location we're basically proposing about 25 feet in from what is currently a row of posts behind the porta potty, that white square thing there, and roughly centered in that field. We have spoken with the RC modelers, and they're on board with our suggestion here. The whole point of the observatory was the club was given permanent access, permanent use of a rather large, very nice, pretty much state-of-the-art telescope. This came from the Art, Science, and Technology Education Corporation of Tehachapi, with the understanding that one of its primary uses would be for public outreach science education.
You have 2 stop quotes capsules.
Oh, that wasn't me. One downside of this telescope is it's rather large. It's a little awkward and difficult to drag out and set up for all of our events. So the idea was to create a permanent home for the telescope. Uses that we foresee, of course, high on the list would be public outreach, science education in general, community star parties, Bear Valley Springs, astronomy club events, and it should be ideal for visual observing as well as astroimaging and data collection, and hopefully with the ultimately to be able to attract in some student STEM and member projects. What we are proposing is what we are calling our phase 1 development, and that is to get a functional on-sky observatory or telescope shed. That would mean having to drag out a portable battery pack, manually actuating the roof, that sort of thing, but a usable observatory. Our current budget, we're estimating about $6,000, which we plan to get both through internal and external fundraising. We had sufficient funds in hand, but that was several months ago. We didn't foresee how long the approval process would take, nor did we factor in the sudden spike in inflation. So we're currently estimating $6,000, but all this will have to be revisited once we finally get through the approval process. Although we're only talking currently about phase 1, that has not meant that we haven't sat around and talked about potential enhancements in the eventual future, which we would label as phase 2 and phase 3, including things like electrifying the facility, probably using like solar panels, which would allow us to motorize the roof retraction, getting internet, security cameras, a dedicated control and data acquisition computer, a science camera, and possibly with the ultimate possibility of making it remotely operatable. We have made a detailed plan, and from that we put together a 3D CAD model of the facility. I'd love to go over the design features, but to waste your time no more than necessary, I'll move along. From our model and from our design, we were able to put together an extensive parts list, which from that we were able to get a good estimate of the price from materials and price listing at the time, which we came up with about $5,300. However, again, that was several months ago, and with inflation, we're currently estimating it's probably about $6,000. But again, that will have to be revisited once we're through this entire process. Now, I'll stop quiet. Now, finally, we were able to put together this animation from our model, which pretty well illustrates what we are proposing here. This is the facility. We're looking at a metal security door. The walls are spec'd as it being cement fiberboard, and the roof material is metal to minimize the maintenance necessary, and also to diminish fire risk. The telescope is mounted on a steel pier, which is isolated from the rest of the floor, acoustically isolated on a cement foundation. And there's no tripod vest to trip over as one is entering or exiting the facility. You'll also see that the doorway is offset to one side so that people can enter and exit from the observing station without having to go in and around the telescope. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'd be very pleased to try to address any questions you might have.
All right, well done. Mr. Quinn?
Yes, thank you, Clyde, very good presentation.
I first became aware of this project, a call from Mr. Norton, X number of months ago, and a lot of the detail is the same. Of course, the location has changed. And at that time, I expected to be receiving more contributions going through the Bear Valley Community Recreation Facilities Foundation, the BVSCRFF. We haven't received anyone's but Mr. Norton's, although I had committed to a contribution from myself and my family. So I'm just wondering, do you have this in a bank account, separate bank account, or is it going through the foundation, or what's the plan?
We do have a separate account, however, we plan to continue to use that. But until we got a approved project here in the valley, we felt that it was awkward to try to do fundraising for a project that had no approval. So we've been holding off on going forward with that. We have numerous pledges that mostly internally and around, but we have not called those in. We'll need to revisit that.
Just a reminder, donations through the foundation are tax deductible and you get a receipt, so an incentive to put it through the system. Thank you.
That's appreciated.
Great presentation. I think it's a great idea. I appreciate the fact that you've changed the locations. I know the higher location was perhaps more optimal for viewing, but I think this is a safer location. It's kind of out there where if there aren't any activities going on, it's going to be pretty obvious if someone's out there doing something that they shouldn't be. So, great location. Nothing else?
Okay. Thank you, Claude. I'll just add, the BVSA approved the upper location. I think you're going back to them to approve the RC Club's location, is that right?
I assume we'll need to.
Okay.
Again, the process is still somewhat obscure to us.
I think
But
it's
I would expect that we would need to, yes.
Okay, then it is obscure to everyone. The district put a proposal together for the BVSA in July to get a procedure locked in, and it's just hasn't been, approved, so.
Understood. We have informally informed them of our intention to change, but we have not gone back for formally requesting, and we'll have to figure out what they want us to do, I assume.
Okay, do my colleagues up here think it should go to the liaison committee or anything? For any reason?
I don't see a reason for it.
Could I respond to the comment over here?
Yes.
Yeah, as far as High Country, it is undoubtedly a better astronomical site. It's above, well away from light pollution, higher elevation, less scattering of light. But on the other hand, we did rate this location highly due to the potential for the public outreach. It is far more accessible. This thing's really in the way. And is a good location for a public outreach facility.
Okay, good. All right, so then the BVSA should probably approve it, and then we'll see it on our consent calendar, hopefully. Yes.
Just one suggestion as this moves forward, it appears, Claude, that the BVSA is treating you all as some kind of independent agency, requiring separate insurance and things like that. Since there are tenants and they have insurance, I would strongly encourage that they accept you and put you and your operation under the lease we have with them. Because otherwise you're kind of out there independently, because we don't have a relationship directly with you. We've leased all that land to them, to provide amenities. So it seems like they should be sponsoring it. I mean, if they want you to help pay coverage, but it'd be better to keep you under their umbrella, so to speak.
Well, my understanding is it is under their umbrella. All the clubs are covered by their liability. We are planning to acquire some additional insurance that's readily available through the Astronomy, Astronomical League, I'm sorry.
But do you need that? I mean, they have significant
Technically,
coverage.
no, but it's at a reasonable rate, and, considering what we do in the dark with children, there's some concern that we might, be accused of something.
Okay, then maybe the legal issue is a little bit more simple, but it would be really that they would agree to add you to the amenity list that we have. We have a lease with them, and if they add that as an amenity, then it's covered.
This is technically an addition or an improvement to the existing amenity.
If they're going to accept it, right, but that's what we just asked, that they
Right.
come to us, and when the board consents, we're basically consenting to, yes, we accept that amenity, which I think the board, sounds like they support that.
Okay, we'll have to.
Does that make sense?
I
Just-
believe so.
Okay.
I thought that was a little more automatic, but we'll look into that.
Okay.
Right, because I was at the BVSA meeting when you finally gained approval, and their motion was a little convoluted, where it said, well, we're not taking any responsibility for any of this, and put all of the responsibility on the club, which makes it difficult, because the CSD doesn't have any relationships with clubs. We have a relationship with the BVSA, and the BVSA handles clubs. I know you're a recognized club, but if they don't recognize it as an amenity, it will make this difficult.
It was that we would take, it wasn't actually in the motion. And so it should be reflected in the minutes. There's comments from the other directors. But the assumption is we're gonna maintain the building. We'll whack the weeds around it. And we even said, okay, we'll improve the road so we can get in and out. And ultimately, that was the deal breaker. Having us maintain a half-mile long dirt road on steep grade was unreasonable. So that's one of the reasons we rejected the site. But that was it. We would maintain the building, we'd whack the weeds. The airfield is even less of a concern in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
It seems like they would fall under the BVSA's blanket umbrella policy for any injuries or things like that happen at.
Yes.
Well, we should clarify it, but I think it's more the issue that the BVSA should also confirm that they are accepting that as an amenity.
Yes.
Just like with the trails when we approve them too, because again, we don't have the relationship with the club, it's only with the BVSA.
Yes.
So they just need to be more clear with you all, kind of accept that relationship, and we can talk to their manager. I'm not trying to make it more difficult, I'm trying to make it actually less difficult, because then we'd have to have a lease with you, which we could do, but.
But I can understand the additional insurance for the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanna leave it to chance.
Let me clarify, the equipment will not be transferred to the BVSA, that is separate. So the responsibility once would be for the structure itself. The telescope is still the property of the Arts and Sciences and Technology on my slide of Tehachapi, and will remain such. The liability for maintaining that will be on us.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we don't need to send it to liaison. Hopefully the BDSA will get their motion.
Mr. President, I think the intention was for it to go to liaison, when I was talking to Bill earlier, just because of the, thank you.
Right.
Concerns and, so we can get clarity.
Because of the procedure that we proposed, it started at the liaison committee and then went to BDSA and then came back to this board for consent. But we straw polled that we don't really need to, but it can be put on that agenda as a discussion item, I reckon. Anybody, well, do you guys object to having it on the liaison committee?
No.
Okay, so this board suggests we put it on the liaison committee's minutes then. We'll
Okay.
put it there, and then we can discuss the relationship between the BVSA and the
That seems to be
CSD
the issue.
and the lease. Okay, that's a good place to discuss that.
And then, any decisions would be in time for it to be on the November board meeting calendar. if needed.
Great, okay.
So, Mr. President, is the implication then that, we should not approach BVSA board again until after the liaison committee gives a recommendation?
I think you'd still have to get
Have to get
approval
location changes.
to the new location.
Yeah, well, see, that's the fourth Tuesday,
Yes.
BVSA, and when's our next liaison?
The first Thursday
Okay.
would be November 3rd at 7 p.m.
It'll work out.
Sounds good.
Calendar wise. Okay, anything else? Thank you, Claude, and thank you, Bill, that was great. Excellent. Look forward to that cool amenity for our residents. Public comment on non-agenda items, Ms. McKeon.
Members of the public may address the board on matters not listed on this agenda. The board cannot take action on any item that is not on the agenda. The board or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed, or may ask questions for clarification. These items may also be referred to staff or scheduled on a future agenda. There will be a separate opportunity for public comment for each item on the agenda. I have one card. Do you have a Freebird?
Ms. Freeberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. 10 of my signs were taken down by the CSD road workers on Monday, October 3rd. Other candidates' signs were also taken down for allegedly breaking the BBCSD campaign sign rules. There were supposedly no signs being picked up when calls were made by candidates that same day to the BBCSD office. It wasn't until the following day that Ms. Smith called me to let me know they had enough workers to remove any signage that was illegally placed on the CSD right-of-way, and they could be picked up at the office. A few days earlier, there had been complaints on social media that 2 candidates' signs had been put up illegally, were an eyesore, and the public should not support their candidacy because they break the rules. I responded in the post that I think none of the candidates knowingly disregarded the campaign sign rule regulations. Coincidentally, the CSD decided to enforce their laws roughly 2 months into the elections process, all the while disregarding the political blood PD signs, which some of them have visibly been on the right-of-way for a year or so. So that gets us to the decision to implement an arbitrary and unjust standard. The roadways might or might not be centered on the easement's halfway mark. Any measurements made from the edge of the road to the recommended distance is therefore unreliable and unenforceable. It appears that the creators of the regulations were aware of this and recommended using utility poles as a general rule of thumb. After the fact, they acknowledged water meters would also be used to judge the edge of private property. Some of the signage were illegally removed from private property, while others, I assume, were also removed from private property, not just my own. Only 6 signs out of the 10 removed of mine were documented by CSD photos. I had to drive around to find the last 4 locations, and I don't know if there's any others that were missing. I would ask the board to address as arbitrary, unenforceable laws, deal with apparent irregularities, come up with a solution that all candidates can post signs without worrying about repercussions. They're just political signs for a limited duration. Thank you for your consideration.
Any staff response?
Have, no other cards?
Any other public comment? Cool. Consent calendar. Yep. Consent calendar, Mr. McKeon.
Consent items are considered routine and are intended to be acted upon in one motion without discussion. During this portion of the meeting, the consent calendar will be read aloud. Prior to approval, the president will give the board, staff, and public the opportunity to pull any item for discussion. The remaining calendar will be acted upon. Any pulled items will then be heard and acted upon individually. A, approve minutes of the September 8, 2022 regular board meeting. B, accept monthly investment report as of August 31, 2022. C, accept register of warrants for September 2022.
Items to pull from the public? Yes, Ms. Frieder?
C, please, register warrants.
Pulling C. Anything else? Staff? Board? All right, may I have a motion to approve items A and B, please?
I'll move to approve, items A and B.
Second.
Motion by Jensen, second by Quinn. Roll call vote for those, please.
Director Jensen?
Aye.
Director Quinn?
Aye.
President Han?
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Ms. Frieder, will you approach the lectern and tell us about item C?
Kiva, before you start, you don't have to get as close to the mic this time. It's a lot more sensitive.
Like that? Is that good?
Yeah, that's definitely better, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate that. You know how it was before. Okay, There was a question brought up, about maintenance uniforms of $830 a month, and I didn't know if it was just, we're laundering uniforms or whatnot, somebody had asked about that, so I'm just bringing that up here, that it's in the monthly report. Then there's, settlements in here, and they're not noting what they're regarding, if they're regarding our road conditions, cause we understood lately with, the conditions on Cumberland that there were some settlements for people's damage to their vehicles. So I had a question about those 3 settlements. And then there's the, emulsion, tacloth, AC asphalt, and there's some road work being done. And so the backfill for the water break, it talks about, and I'm wondering, and there's another one in here, hydrant, well, not the hydrant reimbursement, but anyway, are those charges for the road work being charged back to the water department where the damage was caused due to a leak, or is that going against our road, fund? So, those are my questions, thank you.
Okay. Uniforms?
Okay, uniforms, they're,
Go ahead.
Yeah, speaker's back.
Okay. The uniforms are for, our staff that require uniforms, and when an agency requires uniforms, it's customary that it provides them. So that's what we do for our, public works.
Okay.
So it's not a cleaning bill, that's what people were asking.
Well, it's a uniform service.
Okay, cleaning bill, okay.
No, it's not a cleaning bill, but they provide the uniforms, they launder them. They also provide shop rags, they, keep our first aid kits, stocked and, ready to go. AEDs, I believe they maintain.
Okay, and then settlement?
The settlements were, I'm not sure which. Likely for vehicle damage, I think it was the pothole on Cumberland, we had a couple of damage claims.
Alright, we did. Okay, and road work?
And Perla,
So that's Vulcan, it just depends what the supervisor let me know if they were for the water or for the roads.
It's coded differently for a water break or road repair.
Okay,
Thank you.
and hydrants?
what about hydrants?
Hydrants? You said something about hydrants?
Yes, I did mention that, but I didn't want to.
Oh, you skipped that,
So,
okay.
skip that one,
Good,
thank
so
you.
we good?
Yes, thank you.
Alright, anything else on register of warrants? Motion to approve item C?
Motion to accept item C.
Second.
Motion by Quinn, second by Jensen, roll call vote.
Director Jensen?
Aye.
Director Quinn?
Aye.
President Han?
Aye, motion carries 3-0. Disclosures by the board of directors, back to you, Ms. McEwen.
Board members are asked to disclose any outside communications with individuals and organizations that have an action item on this agenda that pertains directly to them or their specific personal or private interests, and which communication is not included or disclosed in the agenda package, so that all interested persons have an equal opportunity to express and represent their interests.
Anything to disclose? Mr. Quinn?
No.
Jensen, nothing from me. Item 12 is action items. We have 2 of those, and the first one is appoint citizen volunteers to the Disaster Preparedness Advisory Council, and it has Ms. McEwen's name beside it.
Yes, I think they all have my name on them tonight.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, the district code establishes the Disaster Council to act as an advisory body to the board of directors through the Public Safety Committee. The DPAC is comprised of 5 community volunteers who are appointed by the board yearly in October. The board can also appoint up to 3 alternates. Greg Matheson, Howard Krawitz, Mark Early, and Richard Brown are currently serving on the council and have expressed their desire to continue for the upcoming year. We have conducted a recruitment, but no additional volunteers have expressed interest at this time. So our recommendation, Mr. President, is that the board reappoint the current members and direct staff to continue recruiting for the vacant spots.
Thank you, Ms. McEwen. Comments from the public? Yes, Ms. Cooper?
I didn't see but I would glad to serve with DPAC, cause I go to meetings already and I pretty much know what they're doing, so if they would like me, I would be glad to serve with DPAC.
Okay. With 3 spots and 3 people already
There's
there?
5 spots and there's 4 people.
Okay. Alright, I think we can accommodate that. Anybody else from the public on DPAC? Thank you, Ms. Cooper,
You're
for
welcome.
stepping up. Appreciate that service. Mr. Jensen? Comments?
I don't recall seeing where did we do our recruitment for, cause I don't remember this in a previous agenda.
It wasn't on an agenda. We put it out in our social media, on the website, our normal avenues.
I think it was announced at some of the, Measure V&W meetings.
Oh, it was,
As
yes,
well.
at the outreach meetings.
I've heard you say several times, oh, by the way, we're recruiting for that.
I don't recall.
Fair, that's
Yeah,
fair.
At least not in an agenda item anyway, or an information item, discussion item. No.
I don't think I saw it on the agenda either, I
Yeah.
believe you. It's an ongoing basis to recruit for the committees. Is there an objection or anything?
No, I just, I would kind of expect better awareness of it.
Okay.
I mean, if I didn't know we were recruiting, then there's kind of a problem. I mean, I should know.
We
Director
can do
Quinn,
it,
did
we
you-
can do it better
did you
next
know?
time, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Quinn?
I concur.
Okay, opportunity for improvement to mention it here. By the way, we're recruiting for various committees, Your Honor, so, and thanks, Mr. Cooper, for stepping up. Any other discussion? Shall we move to appoint these folks?
I move the Board of Directors appoint Greg Matheson, Howard Krawitz, Mark Early, Richard Brown, and Carl Cooper to, as citizen volunteers to the Disaster Preparedness Advisory Council.
Second.
Motion by Quinn, second by Jensen, roll call vote.
Director Jensen?
Aye.
Director Quinn?
Aye.
President Han?
Aye, motion carries 3-0. Thank you for your service to our community. Item B, authorize the general manager to execute various documents and agreements related to employee group health benefits through the district's insurance broker. Ms. McEwen.
Mr. President, members of the board, this next item is our annual renewal process for group health and other ancillary benefits. This year, we were very happy to learn that even though we had budgeted for a 10% increase in premiums, the actual increase for our base health plan was 3%. In addition, there's no increase for the ancillary benefits such as dental, vision, and life insurance. With that good news, we recommend that the board authorize the general manager to move forward with the approvals.
Thank you. Comments from the public? Mr. Jensen.
Do we have a breakdown of the total district cost for the ancillary benefits, like the long-term care? How much extra is it for the entire district for a year?
I don't have it with me, no. It's available, I can provide that.
I'd like to see that before I could even move forward with that.
Okay.
That's all.
Mr. Quinn?
Nothing.
No, this is fairly routine. How hard is it to get that? What? Are you clear what he's asking?
You want to know the cost of the long-term disability that the district
The
pays?
ancillary coverage that covers long-term disability? It's basically like an AFLAC policy, right?
Correct.
That pays you all
It's a percentage
of your salary while you're injured or ill from a non-workplace illness or injury, right?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't have it on me, no.
Okay. This is you don't wanna give the general manager permission to authorize documents without, any of the documents without seeing that?
Without seeing that, yes.
We couldn't just isolate that one document out of this and make sure they can get their work done, or?
Oh, you can do that, I don't care. I mean, if you wanna remove that from the approval and we can approve that later on a separate item, that's fine.
Okay, any downside to moving that a month, moving that one thing later to next board meeting? Are there deadlines or anything we have to concern ourselves with?
Our benefit year starts December 1st, so we could probably bring that one back for the November meeting. We do have, would like to schedule open enrollment at the beginning of November.
Okay.
So, yeah, there'll be a little bit of overlap. I'm not quite sure how, because it's a package. It's life, accidental death and disability, and the long-term disability is a package, so that may affect, our ability to, well, or just, to cover our people with life insurance.
That would be good, okay. No change, would you like to make the motion and exclude the document that you're,
Well, ultimately, the point is mute, because I think you guys are probably gonna approve it anyway, so.
well, it would have to be all three of us.
Yeah, we need unanimous vote on this because we need a majority.
It's, yeah,
Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve everything except, that one ancillary one with the life, and long-term care insurance. And bring that back to the next meeting, so we can see the separated cost of that for the district.
I'll second.
just make sure we get the motion clear.
Yeah.
Will you read us?
I'm
He's writing.
clear. Authorize the general manager to execute various documents and agreements related to employee group health benefits, removing life insurance, accidental death and disability insurance, and long-term disability insurance through the district's insurance broker.
Sound okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
A motion by Jensen, second by Quinn, roll call vote on that motion, please.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, that motion carries 3-0, and if I may, the package was released Monday, and that would be a good time if you knew you were gonna have a concern to bring it to staff and they could have that prepared for us, and then we could get the business done instead of causing a month delay on it. Just my recommendation.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have been in a public forum, would it?
It's okay for you to ask for them to give you documents.
That's
without
true, but
being here.
my experience with staff is that they require a Public Records Act request for such a request, and I would be waiting 14 days to a month, so.
Why don't, you think if you ask for this cost, they would require you to do it? It's not my experience.
I do.
Alright, that's okay.
I actually requested, all insurance documents for the last 2 years to try to figure out the 70% increase that we saw, and I'm still waiting for them. That was over a month ago.
Director Jensen, if you have a question about an agenda item, I would provide the information that you needed so that you could take action on the agenda item.
Okay.
Right, that's, it's been my experience. Information and discussion item, I didn't have my nap today. Information and discussion items is board comments, and you're up.
I have some discussion items, but the subject of my discussion item is not here today, which would be the general manager, Mr. Malaman. I attended 2 of the special tax meetings, and I heard some things that are quite fantastic and probably shouldn't even be said publicly. One of which was if the board, if the 2 tax measures pass, the board can choose to not levy the full tax. That may be true, but how appropriate is it to say that, or to suggest that? But it gets worse, it went even further. After that, they suggested that some sort of rogue board could come in and say, you know what, we're not gonna pay any tax, we're not gonna charge any tax, levy any tax, and essentially defund the gate in the police department. I find that insulting for both myself on the board and the candidates who are running to suggest that they would do that. If it is the will of the people to pass those measures and they pass, I will not stand in their way. I will commit to the will of the people, and I will levy the full tax as it is approved on the ballots. Okay, so to say that or suggest that is highly irresponsible. We have more problems with the BV exchange insofar as the language is saying the CSD board asks you to approve. I've been through that. Some of the language has been changed. Hopefully it's all been changed. And the frequently asked questions in there. It's also been suggested that the district is required to have a police department. So we have Mr. Davis here. Is that true, that we're required to have a police department?
The district assumed the responsibility for police services.
Are we required to have a police department by law?
Well, again, the LAFCO action when the district formed was to form a police department to provide the public safety.
Is there a law in the government code that requires us to have a police department?
CSD can opt into it, and the CSD did, so I guess.
They can opt into it. They're authorized to, but they're not required to. That's what the law says.
Yes.
Okay. If we were required to have a police department, why wasn't this the linchpin of the district's attack on why we should approve these taxes? I mean, that should have been the point, the first point. Hey, we're required by law to have a police department. You gotta approve these taxes. It was not. And I don't appreciate misleading the public with many of the frequently asked questions and the comments on the BV exchange. I think we're really doing a disservice to the people. That's all I have for that.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes, well, not surprisingly, I do not agree with Director Jensen's statements. At least the presentation that I saw, the suggestion that a rogue board could completely kill the police and the gate was not mentioned, so.
It's in the exchange now.
Well, that's fine, but I didn't read that. If it needs to be removed, that's fine, but you know, as a matter of objective fact, if a board could do it, then why not put it in as a possibility that they could do it? I mean, it's not saying this, if this guy and this guy and this guy are elected to the board, that's probably going to happen. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. I think
it's a scare tactic.
I think it's a mountain out of a molehill.
It's meant to influence the election, and that's not acceptable. It's not appropriate.
Okay, fine.
Mr. President, if I can clarify, those questions came from audience members. They were not part of the presentation, and so they were included in the FAQs as questions from audience members.
Doesn't mean it's appropriate for the district to be spreading it.
Answering the question.
Was it a frequently asked question, or was it asked once? It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate.
Anything, did you have anything?
No, I have nothing further. Thank you.
So I also disagree with Mr. Jensen, and he's welcome to his opinion, and my opinion varies. And I thought I would read a quote for my information for my director comments, and the quote is from Benjamin Franklin. I'm sure everyone has heard of Benjamin Franklin, and it goes like this: "Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do." And that's my comments. Staff reports, finance.
Oh, that would be, sorry. You would have the period 2 finance reports as part of the package. I'm here to attempt to answer any questions.
Thank you. Public? Ms. Frieden.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Looking at the budget for the general fund for the PD that was approved last time, and then comparing it to the one that was published in this agenda, I see that, one of the numbers does not match what was approved for total expenditures, and the difference was in the services and supplies. So, previously it was $1,606,482, and now it's $1,694,415,596. So, wondering if maybe that discrepancy could be explained. Thank you.
I will look into that and get back to you.
Thank you, Christie.
Any other public on finance report? Board?
I have nothing.
No.
Nothing from me, thank you, Christie. Public Works report?
The report is in your package. I am here to probably not answer any questions. Oh, but we have our staff here.
Yeah, everybody's here.
Public Works report, questions from the public.
Just one.
Ms. Cooper?
Since the gate around the asphalt around the gate, are they planning on redoing that? Because it's really bumpy out now. That's all.
Fair question.
And do we have the right equipment to put large patches down? That's the other thing.
Okay.
You know, if they don't have the right equipment, they can't really do the job correctly, of course.
Okay.
Thanks.
We will, yes, remove that asphalt. We were very disappointed with the quality of that asphalt. We don't have the best, we don't have a paver.
Right.
We have 4 guys with shovels and rakes and a tractor. So, yeah, we will do our absolute best to make it a lot
In other
better
words, you
quality.
don't have the proper equipment to really do a great job. You just bust your butt as well as you can.
Yeah, there's nobody more disappointed in that job than the roads employees.
Yes.
So, yeah, we apologize for that.
Oh, no, sorry, I just
No,
wanna
it's
make sure
fine.
you have the right equipment too, you know, something to look into.
Okay, any more questions for Public Works report from the public? Mr. Jensen?
No.
Mr. Gwynn?
Yes, I have sort of a seat of the pants question for, Mr. Will Parks. Is he here?
Yeah.
He is.
Yes.
Could you give us a guesstimate, an average of how long and manpower needs to do a simple lateral replacement where there's not, say it's on a cul-de-sac in the lower valley, you know, it's not up in the mountains or a thoroughfare or anything like that. How long it takes from the point of, okay, we have a leak, we have to go out there and you open it up until the point where it gets sealed up by probably Daniel with the asphalt. Can you go through that process?
Yeah, we have some leaks that, they will leak for a few days depending on the severity of it, and we have some leaks that you guys have all seen out here driving by. Some will leak for months.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it on a side street, and even on a main road, it doesn't matter where it is, we have 3 guys to replace that service line. So it literally involves someone on the back, someone on the dump truck, and most of the time it leaves 1 guy, and the dump truck driver when he's not driving it to do the digging and the actual repair work. So we get lucky sometimes and we'll have them done in 3/4 of a day, but for 3 guys to replace 1 service line, depending on the length of that particular service, it takes all day. Something that I think a lot of residents don't know out here is what's called a corpse stop or a lateral saddle. So there'd be a saddle on the main line, right? And then you have a shutoff valve on that saddle that you could dig down, turn the water off, and replace that line without causing a disturbance. Those weren't installed originally out here. So they have their direct tap into the pipe without a corp. So that requires us to shut the water down, drain the line due to the severity of how high the pressure is. We need to drain that line in order to do that, which sometimes also takes quite some time to drain. And then we have to recharge it very slowly to cause other damage to the pipes around to prevent water hammer. So typically it takes a day to replace a line, long story short. With the 3 guys. If we get anywhere on Cumberland, especially the Cumberland Hill, which you guys have probably all noticed, it's safer for us just to shut the road down. And any other places, we depend on the roads to help us do traffic control when they're not patching the million other water leak patches that we've already done or their stuff. So it's short staff, but so they'd fix it, and sometimes depending on the severity, we will, if it's sometimes we'll just clamp them just because we have so many leaks we're chasing and we don't have the time or the manpower that particular day to replace the line, but we try to circle back and replace the lines that have multiple clamps on them.
I think I heard from Bill at one point that there's a certain number of clamps that you don't exceed. You know, if you get to how many clamps on a lateral, you say, well, it's gotta be replaced completely.
Yeah, so like in a perfect world, if we clamp it once, that's fine. If we go back to clamp it again, we know we're gonna be back there. Like I said, depends. And sometimes, we'll do a couple clamps and we go replace it, and we've discovered that there's about 5 more clamps from previous repairs. So we literally pulled out a line on Diamond Court a couple weeks ago, or maybe last month, that was, had 7 clamps on it. That's why I use that.
Yeah. Okay, you've talked about the water department component. Now, with perfect coordination, roads can come in and fill this spot with asphalt.
Sure.
Assuming that they're not in the middle of something that they can't break away from.
Yeah, and we're breaking them out, and they're very limited to the amount of asphalt they can haul at a time also. So typically we're ahead of them on the game, and they'll come in, and as you can see, all the water leak patches they did last month, and they come back behind us as most of the time as quickly as they can. Maybe not quick enough sometimes, but sometimes we let our leaks leak way too long also, you know. They're in the same boat we are, you know.
Also, the subgrade can be saturated, so if it's leaking for a month, you don't want me to come back and patch it that same day, because the entire ground is so saturated, there's gonna be a lot of movement. So you want the surrounding area to dry out. Even though they backfilled it with sand base, it's still, the surrounding area can be saturated. So you don't wanna do it the same exact day.
Takes a while to de-water.
Sure. Do we have steel plates in the facility to put them in place in some cases?
We do, and we do use them on the occasions where we can't backfill them that day. We will use steel plates, yeah.
Okay.
But we try to backfill them. I personally feel it's the safer solution in the long run. We've had the same problems with steel plates where traffic is hitting them at quite the speeds, coming on the road 50 miles an hour, hitting a steel plate. I have seen them where they slide, even with asphalt wrapped around them.
And I imagine the slope would make a difference too.
Yeah, on slopes, we just absolutely try not to use them.
Yeah. Thank you.
I bumped into Sergeant Hurst one morning. He was sitting by one of those plates that had moved and was blocking making sure nobody went down in it before you guys could get there.
Where was it?
It was like 5 in the morning on San Juan.
I don't think I've seen it.
I don't even know why I was up at 5 in the morning.
Riding your bike?
I don't know. I don't know how to ride a bike very well anymore. Public Works report, that was you, me. I have nothing to add. Public safety report, we have our chief here.
You have my report in your package, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Public questions for public safety. Thank you. Mr. Jensen?
You just briefly, at the last meeting you mentioned a change in the calculation for average response times. Can you explain what you did?
Yes. So when I calculate the response times, I rely on data that comes from the county. They give me the number of incidents that took place. They also give me the response time. They give me the response time in seconds. So for example, there might be a disturbance call, let's say, and there were 3 occurrences, and it might say 1,000 seconds. So the way the response time has been calculated since its inception was they would take the column that has all the seconds, and they would add that up, and then they would use that as the total amount of seconds for all incidents. However, when I was going through it, I didn't necessarily agree with that. I noticed that that wasn't adding up. What I discovered was in that same exact example I gave you, let's say there's 3 occurrences of disturbance, per se, and it says 1,000 seconds. That 1,000 seconds is an average of those 3 calls. So in this instance, this example would be 3,000 seconds. So this has been basically the way that these calculations have been made, like I said, since the inception. So you would need to take those seconds, determine how many occurrences there were, and calculate that out to find out what your sum of seconds are, and then plug it into the calculation. So that'll be a little more clear. The calculation wasn't wrong, it was the data that was being input into the formula was not right.
Yeah, nothing.
Mr. Quinn.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you for your service and thank you for wearing the badge.
Thank you.
General counsel report.
Nothing this evening?
Wonderful. General manager report. Did
Take it,
anyone-
Christie.
Are we just mixing that item?
Yeah,
We
don't
can do
have
that. Did we have future agenda items? We had one with the long-term disability document. We have possible consent calendar item for the Astronomy Club. What else do we have?
And that is all I have.
Anything else? I don't think there is. So just before we adjourn, it's a great time of the year because hockey season has begun. And we call it 1900, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.